Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Should we start?
Yeah, I think we should start now. This is quite enough time. Okay. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalaakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namne Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaurvani Pracharane Nirvishesh Shunyavadi Paschati Deshtarane Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So, shall we start? Which verse are we? 47 we have to do.
47.
Yes, bro.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate
Vasudevaya.
Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Ham evasam evagre.
Aham evasamaevagre.
Nanyat kinchataram bahi.
Nanyat kinchataram bahi.
Samjnanamatram avyaktam.
Samjnanamatram avyaktam.
Prasuptam eva vishwata.
Prasuptam eva vishwata. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandavat pranam.
Yes, please.
May I read, Prabhuji?
Hare Krishna. Yes, please.
Before the creation of this cosmic manifestation, I alone existed with my specific spiritual potency. Consciousness was then unmanifested, just as one's consciousness is manifested during the time of sleep. The word aham indicates a person as explained in the Vedas, Nityo Nityanam Chetanam Chetananam. The Lord is supreme eternal among innumerable eternals and the supreme living beings among the innumerable living beings. The Lord is a person who is also impersonal feature as stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 1.2.11. Vadanti tat tattvavitam tattvam yad jnana abhyam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavan iti sabdyate. The learned transcendentalist who knows the absolute truth calls this non-dual substance Brahman, Paramatma or Bhagavan. Consideration of this Paramatma and impersonal Brahman arose after the creation. Before the creation, only Supreme Personality of God existed. As firmly declared in Bhagavad Gita 18.55, Lord can be understood only by Bhakti Yoga. The ultimate cause, the supreme cause of creation is the Supreme Personality of Godhead who can be understood only by Bhakti Yoga. He cannot be understood by speculative philosophical research or by meditation. Since all such processes came into existence after the material creation, the impersonal and the localized conceptions of the Supreme Lord are more or less materially contaminated. The real spiritual process, therefore, is Bhakti Yoga. As the Lord says, Bhaktyamam Avijanati, Bhagavad Gita 18.55. Only by devotional service can I be understood. Before the creation, the Lord existed as a person, as indicated here by the word aham. When Prajapati Daksh saw him as a person who was beautifully dressed and ornamented, he actually experienced the meaning of this word aham through devotional service. Each person is eternal because the Lord says that he existed as a person before the creation. Agree, and will also exist after the annihilation. The Lord is a person eternally. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur therefore quoted these words from Srimad Bhagavatam 10.9, 13-14 slokas. Nachantar na bahiryasya na purvam napi chaparam purva param bahis chantar jagato yo jagat chaha tam tattvam ajam abhyaktam martya lingam adokshajam gopi kula khale damna Babandha Prakrita Yatha. The personality of Godhead appeared in Vrindavana as the son of Mother Yashoda, who bound the Lord with a rope as an ordinary mother binds a material child. There are actually no divisions of external and internal form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Satchit Ananda Vigraha, Brahma Samhita 5.1. But when he appears in his own form, the unintelligent thinks him an ordinary person. Avajananti mam mudha manushim tanu ashrita, Bhagavad Gita 9.11. Although he comes in his own body, which never changes, mudas, the unintelligent, think that the impersonal Brahma has assumed a material body to come in the form of a person. Ordinary living beings assume material bodies, but the Supreme Personality of Godhead doesn't. Since the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the Supreme Consciousness, it is stated herein that Samgyana Martam, the original consciousness. Krishna consciousness was unmanifested before the creation, although the consciousness of Supreme Personality of Godhead is the origin of everything. Lord says in Bhagavad Gita 2.12, never was there a time when I did not exist. Nor you, nor all these kings, nor in future shall we any of us cease to be. Thus the Lord's person is absolute truth in the past, present, and future. In this regard, Madhvacharya quoted two verses from Matsya Purana. Nanavarna haris to eko bahu sirsa bhujo rupat asli le tad anyat tu sukshma rupa shriyam bina ashrupata supta avacha militaksho bhavad dharihi anyatra dharat vishnu srischa lineva kathyate sukshmatvena haro stanal linam anyad apisyate. After the annihilation of everything, the Supreme Lord, because of his Satchidananda Vigraha, Bhagavad Gita, Brahma Samhita 5.1, remain in his original form, but since the other living entities have material bodies, the matter merges into the matter, and the subtle form of the spirit soul remains within the body of the Lord. The Lord doesn't sleep, but ordinary living entity remains asleep until the next creation. An unintelligent person thinks that the opulence of the Supreme Lord is non-existence after the annihilation. But that is not a fact. The opulence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead remains as it is in the spiritual world. Only in the material world it is everything dissolved. Brahma Lina, merging into the Supreme Brahma, is not actual Lina or annihilation. For the subtle form of remaining in the Brahman effulgence will return to material world after material creation and again assume a material form. This is described as bhutva praliyate. When the material body is annihilated, the spirit soul remains in a subtle form, which later assumes another material body. This is the true for the conditioned souls, but the Supreme Personality of God remains eternally in his original consciousness and spiritual body. Hare Krishna. Dandavat Pranam Prabhuji. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam Prabhu. Thank you. Before the creation of this cosmic manifestation, I alone existed with my specific spiritual potencies. So it's a very interesting point actually. In Chandogya Upanishad also, there is a very interesting verse which mentions that in the beginning there was the one absolute and he divided himself into infinite parts for his own pleasure. So, in the beginning, like there is that verse in Bhagavad Gita, na jayate amriyate va kadachin nayam bhutva bhavita vana bhuya ajo nityah shashvato yam purano na hanyate hanyamane sharire. So there is some controversy regarding the translation of that verse. Srila Prabhupada translates that as having once been, nor having once been is it ever annihilated. So some devotees debate that. They say, no, how is that even possible? Having once been, the soul is never created. So no. So according to Chandogya Upanishad and according to Acharyas, there is a possibility that soul has in some inconceivable way, in some inconceivable way has been created by the Lord. So whether we see it from a poetic perspective, having once been, or we see it from a very technical perspective of Chandogya Upanishad, we can say that the expression that Srila Prabhupada uses is very much correct. So the living entity is always a part and parcel of the Lord. Having once been, he is never annihilated. So yes, whether he was created from the Lord or whether he was eternally existing, the fact is that the soul can never be annihilated. Consciousness was then unmanifested, just as one's consciousness is unmanifested during the time of sleep. So here also Srila Prabhupada explains a very beautiful point. So at some point, Srila Prabhupada had a surgery once in UK, I think. So Prabhupada writes that when I went for surgery, they put me to anesthesia. And then I woke up after the surgery. So the surgery went for 2 or 3 hours, but I had no consciousness of it. So the soul just goes into a stupor, it just goes into a sleep. So when at the time of Brahma's annihilation, all the souls who have not purified themselves, they remain in a suspended state within the Brahman, within the body of the Supreme Lord. Because the Lord absorbs, all the matter is absorbed in the Lord. The universes are all absorbed into the body of the Supreme Lord, and all the souls, they become unmanifest. And when the next creation takes place, this soul is again released into the material world. So this consciousness always remains. How that remains is very difficult to understand. That is achintya, because we have no conception of it. So, how does one understand this Supreme Lord? So Krishna is existing in Brahman form and personal form. So Srila Lord Brahma is also explaining Vedeshu Durlabh Adurlabham Atma Bhaktao. So by studying of scriptures, by devotional, by spiritual practices, one cannot attain the Supreme Lord. One may develop some level of understanding, but one cannot fully understand the Lord. That understanding comes only when one has surrendered to the Supreme Lord. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam. Mam yo avyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate. So the Lord is emphasizing the word bhakti, prem, priti purvakam. He's emphasizing these words. So devotional service of the Lord is not a mechanical process. Lord is not understood by following rules and regulations. I mean, having said that, I don't mean to say that we should not follow rules and regulations. What I'm saying is that rules and regulations are not sufficient. Because sometimes there's a possibility that simply by following rules and regulations, one may actually become egoistic. And that's the cause of a downfall of a devotee. I'm able to chant 16 rounds. I get up at 4 in the morning. I read for 2 hours. I. So that is all nonsense. I am able to do anything because Krishna is allowing me. Prakriti kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvasha. So when one gives up this false conception of I, then bhakti starts. I am able to do anything because Krishna is allowing me. So Krishna gives me the permission, so I am able to do anything at all. So that is the consciousness of a devotee of the Lord. And in this way, Lord is known. Adurlabham Atma Bhaktao, one who's surrendering himself to the Lord, that he can understand Krishna. And then intelligence is given by Krishna again. Because this final connection between the spirit soul and the Supreme Lord is established by Krishna only. We don't do it. Our practices don't do it. By our practice, we are proving to Krishna that we are dedicated to him, that we are serious about this process. But the result of the process itself comes from Krishna himself. Vedeshu durlabh adurlabham atma bhaktao. So Govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami. To such a Lord I offer my obeisances. So the original consciousness, Krishna consciousness, was unmanifested before the creation. Although Krishna, all the consciousness of Supreme Personality is the origin of everything. So when the living entity enters into this material world, before entering, he is unconscious. Then he has no relationship. As per the second canto, the very first covering of ignorance, or the very first covering of Maya, is that the living entity forgets the Supreme Lord. He considers the world to be everything. He considers the pleasure of this world to be real. He forgets his relationship with the Supreme Lord. So these are different layers of ignorance that cover the living entity. And once he has been covered by this ignorance, it's very, very difficult to get out. Even the great sages who are constantly trying to liberate themselves from the material clutches, even they are not able to get out of it. Because this concept of I is very difficult to give up. So that's why you see our process is achintya bheda bhed. Achintya. So this Brahma Lina that we are talking about here, this Brahma Lina merging into the Brahman means merging the consciousness into the Brahman, not the identity. That's a subtle distinction. By merging our consciousness into the Brahman, we are able to give up this concept of I. So Mayavadis misunderstand that as annihilation of personal existence. But that is not true. We annihilate the sense of personality, but the person remains. We give up this sense of proprietorship. We give up the sense of being a master. Then we can remember the Lord very easily. Hare Krishna. Yes, any questions or comments here?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Danda Pranam. Prabhuji, two things over here. One thing is, Prabhuji, Krishna says, na, Mame Vamsha Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. So he's basically saying that the Jiva is my Amsha. So when, like many people say, there are two schools of thought. One is that the Jiva actually has divided or come from Krishna. When, I mean, eternally, when did it occur? Nobody knows. And the some people say that it is only because the Jivatmas and Krishna were always eternally separate, but it's only that because they merge into the body of Karnodakshai Vishnu and then they appear to come. That's why it's like that. So what would, I mean, according to what you said now, Prabhupada actually would say the first thing what I said. They were actually coming from Krishna, divided from him. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, see, so it's this way, Mana Shashtani Indriyani Prakriti Sthani Karshati. So we are situated now. So, like Prabhupada also explains that, first you save yourself, then you'll know. Because anything is possible. Now, Chandogya Upanishad is saying that in the beginning there was one. Now, what part is he referring to? Karnodakshai Vishnu or is he referring to Krishna? That no one knows. Though these are all interpretations. And most importantly, these interpretations are mood. Like in the sense that we are really not qualified to understand it anyway. That's why it's achintya. So to debate this point is actually, but yeah, I would be inclined to say, see, Srila Prabhupada writes that, yes, in that nor having once been, does he cease to be. Having once been naturally means there is some origin. But it could also possibly mean that, yes, the living entity was merged in Brahman, inside the body of Karanodakshai Vishnu, and now he's been released. But then again, if we go by that contention, then when we talk about Srimad Bhagavatam, the time of universal dissolution, the Lord, the living entities again merge into the Supreme. So how do we understand that? So then again, that takes us back to that point that having once been, nor having once been, does he cease to be. So that goes back to original state. Then he will again merge into the Lord. So if we consider that to be Kaivalya, then that Kaivalya is then violating the condition mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita. Because then going back into the body of Mahavishnu would be the same thing as merging into him. So how do we understand this? So this is achintya.
Okay. And one more thing, Prabhuji, you mentioned that bhakti cannot be done by just following rules and regulations. Is it that a Vaidhi sadhana bhakti should actually mature into Raganuga bhakti? You are trying to say that? Or
this is a very interesting and contentious point also. Nor having once been does he cease to be. See, think of it this way, that Raga Bhakti is not a stage to be attained. It happens. Raga Bhakti, Savedhi Bhakti, these are not like stages. Okay, first standard passed, now I go to second standard. It's not like this. They all go simultaneously. when you go to the temple for the first time, you have some feelings for the deity. You have some feelings for devotees. They should not be artificial. This nonsense Sahajias, now there are plenty of them in ISKCON also, that, oh, I worship Radha Rani. This is bogus, this is complete nonsense. You can't imagine feelings. Either they are there or they are not there. So if one keeps one's heart simple, then one will automatically develop these feelings. It may take lifetimes, but one should not try to hasten the process. One cannot artificially cultivate this Raganuga stage. One cannot jump to Raganuga. You can't take a book from Vrindavan, buy it, read it, and develop Raganuga. That's not going to happen. Simply visiting some Babaji somewhere and talking to him will not give Raganuga Bhakti. That's just not going to work. We have devotees who are criticizing Srila Prabhupada and then trying to develop Raga Bhakti. That's some real level of stupidity, That's really stupid. Acharya Mam Vijaniyam. Acharya is Krishna. If you think that Srila Prabhupada is harsh or he's too tough, then you better leave Bhakti. Then Bhakti is not the place for you. At least ISKCON is not the place. Then you can find Raganuga somewhere else. Maybe follow Sri Sampradaya or some other Sampradaya. Because Gaudiya Sampradaya is locked out. Because in Gaudiya Sampradaya, Prabhupada is an Acharya. If one dumps Prabhupada and goes to Sridhar Swami or goes to this Babaji or Narayan Swami, he's not going to develop any bhakti at all. Because within Sampradaya, what is the use? He'll be lost. So he'll have to wait for a few hundred births before he can again restart this process. So Raganuga Bhakti is not developed this way. Raganuga Bhakti comes by following rules and regulations with the spirit behind those rules. No meat eating, no illicit sex. Why no illicit sex? No, not that we want to become hardcore celibates, but because of courtesy, because Krishna doesn't like it. That will give us that love. If we just practice celibacy because, hey, it has to be done as a challenge, then that will not give any bhakti at all.
Means if we follow everything properly, finally our Vaidhi Bhakti will mature into Raganuga Bhakti, and that is when we have really reached that real stage of Bhakti, right?
Yes. So, in the sense that Raganuga Bhakti will come when we have developed the proper spirit of sadhana. Out of love and respect for Srila Prabhupada, when we are following these rules and regulations, Raga Bhakti will definitely come. Because the spiritual master is none other than the manifestation of Krishna himself. Krishna is actually testing us. So sometimes Guru may do things which appear to be, wild or outrageous. At that time, if we start judging the Guru, then we are finished. That's a test we fail. That's why you see so many devotees have talked about Prabhupada, and eventually they just leave movement.
Okay, Prabhuji. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, just I was hearing a lecture from Keshwananda Prabhu, and he was saying on this thing. He said that, like you said also, this sadhana bhakti or this all the things will have no effect unless somebody have. You also told many a time that laulyam, which is required, and he explained laulyam is Prabhupada has mentioned that there is some sort of anxieties to get Krishna. So that thing which is like required even in sadhana also. So that thing which is we are struggling, which is not coming. So this is what I just wanted to point out, Roji.
Yes, that is true. We are struggling. See, this laulyam. See, but how will this laulyam also come? Think of it this way. How do we know what we are hearing is true or not? There are so many stories of Krishna in Amar Chitra Katha. There are so many stories of Krishna being peddled by Babajis, but they are fake. They are not real. We will not develop laulyam, we will develop lust. So, if we hear Srila Prabhupada, we hear the message of his simplicity. See, it's like, there's an old English saying that everyone wants to go to heaven, but no one wants to die. So it is like this. We want to find Krishna, but we don't want spiritual master. So that becomes Mayavad. Actually, Sahajism is a form of Mayavad because we want to attain something which we don't even know. We just want to become something. Oh, I want to be like Lalita Sakhi, Vishakha Sakhi. So that is Mayavad. In reality, Gopi Bharto Pada Kamalayor Das Dasanudas, servant of the Gopis. Rupa Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, they are Manjaris. They are servants of Gopis. And we are Rupanugas, so we are their servants. So where is the question of servant trying to become the master? Gaudiya Vaishnavas don't want to serve Krishna and Radha. They want to serve the servants of Radha and Krishna, servants of the servants of Radha and Krishna.
Yes, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, just to recollect, I just would like to share. He said further 3 more points. He said for this, these 3 things he said essential for our like Gaudiya Vaishnava devotees. He said one is that one should not think to enjoy madhurya. Madhurya, not a bhoga. Madhurya ki seva karna. To serve the madhurya. So ऐसा कोई माधुर्य में आके ऐसा नहीं, तो one should be mood of in madhurya also mood of in service to serve. Second, he said that there will be sense control, madhurya ki seva. And third one, he said this laulyam, which he said ki Prabhu, actual Sanskrit dictionary laulyam means greed, but Prabhupada has quoted laulyam means intense, some sort of anxiety to get Krishna. So these 3, which is he highlighted in that room.
Yeah, see, laulyam means what? Intense desire to attain the service of the Lord. See, like a child, when he's like a young child, like a small child, when he's dropped off at school, he's always meditating on his mother. He wants to come back. He's just waiting for the school bell to ring so that he can run home. So that is laulyam, intense desire. Greed, yes, Nirukti says laulyam as greed, but Prabhupada says intense desire to attain the lotus feet, intense desire to serve Krishna. Feeling of intense separation, that is laulyam. When you feel this material world, shunyayitam jagat sarvam, this material world is a big shunya, zero, then you will attain that laulyam. That is laulyam. When you feel that intense separation from Krishna.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes. So, shall we continue?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay. मयि अनंत गुणे अनंते अनंते
गुणे नन्ते
गुणतो गुण विग्रह
गुणतो गुण विग्रह
यदासी तत एवाद्य
यदासि तत एवाद्य
स्वयंभू संभूदज
स्वयंभू संभूत अज. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, may I read?
Yes, please.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Translation: I am the reservoir of unlimited potency, and therefore I am known as unlimited or all-pervading. From my material energy, the cosmic manifestation appeared within me, and in this universal manifestation appeared the chief being Lord Brahma, who is your source and is not born of a material mother. But by Srila Prabhupada. This is a description of the history of the universal creation. The first cause is the Lord Himself, the Supreme Person. From Him, Brahma is created, and Brahma takes charge of the affairs of the universe. The universal affairs of the material creation depend upon the material energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is therefore the cause of the material creation. The entire cosmic manifestation is described here in as Guna Vigraha, the form of the Lord's qualities. From the cosmic universal form, the first creation is Lord Brahma, who is the cause of all living entities. In this regard, Srila Madhvacharya describes the unlimited attributes of the Lord. Prate ekasho gunanam tu matvam udirate tadanantyam tu gunatas te chananata hi sankhya ato nanta guno vishnur gunato nanta evacha parasya shaktir vividhava shriyate The Lord has innumerable potencies, all of which are unlimited. Therefore, the Lord Himself and all His qualities, forms, pastimes, and paraphernalia are also unlimited. Because Lord Vishnu has unlimited attributes, He is also known as Ananta. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Lord Brahma, who is your source and is not born of a material mother. So Prakriti is the mother, nature is the mother, Lord is the father. So Krishna, Aham Bija Pradapita, Lord impregnates Prakriti and living entities are born. So Brahma takes charge of the affairs of the universe. So actually, like Srila Prabhupada explains, that the living entity enters into the material world in the form of Brahma, and from there on, everything starts. So, of course, from time immemorial, the living entities have been in this various conditions throughout the world. So they are now wondering. So various living entities appear after Brahmaji, but it appears that the living entity first enters into the material world as Brahma. There he can see the Supreme Lord. He is in direct communion with him. But depending on his own consciousness, he then travels up or down. So, if the Lord himself is the primary cause, Lord Brahma is the secondary cause. That's why the Lord is known as Ananta. He has no beginning, he has no end. Ananta. He is unlimited. Actually, Ananta, without any end. So Lord is unlimited, Lord is infinite. So, there's Om Purnam Ada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. So complete wholes are emanating from the Lord, and yet the Lord remains complete. Lord is not like in this material world, if something is taken out, if 1 kg mass is removed from earth, earth will be less 1 kg. But the Supreme Lord is not like this. He is Ananta. So Anantas are emanating from him, and yet he himself remains Ananta. Hare Krishna. Yeah, another very interesting point. The entire cosmic manifestation is described herein as Guna Vigraha, the form of Lord's qualities. So this is also a dream of Mahavishnu. The material world is literally a pastime of the Lord. And we are also a part of Lord's pastime. Lord Mahavishnu dreams, and we are that dream. Hare Krishna. Yes, any questions or comments?
So this Anant means, of course, Vishnu means Anant. But Anant is also in the Sankarshan form, no?
Sankarshan, oh yeah, that is so Ananta. So that's one of the names of the Lord. But Ananta here is a qualitative description of Lord. Ananta.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji,
Hare Krishna.
when we say that this every living entity appears first as Brahma, does it literally mean that, or does it mean that all the living entities have an exalted birth in a higher planetary system? I mean, not directly in the lower. Because to imagine that, literally, it's so difficult to imagine that every living entity was Brahma, and that I also, as Brahma, I have created the universe. I mean, all the bodies and all that.
Well, that's not exactly a very exalted thing. I mean, to be in the mode of passion, to be a Gunavatar is not exactly a very good thing. To have the desire to create the universe, to be the proprietor of the universe, that itself is like the beginning of Ahankar. But yes, all living entities at some point have started as Brahma. But we must also understand that this material creation is infinite and eternal. It has been going on and on. So we don't really know at what point it began. So yes, everyone has become as Brahma, but at what point, that's very difficult to say. So we can imagine the age of this material creation. What is important is how do we get out of here now that we are here.
One of the most important emotion is, Prabhu, that as soon as we think that, okay, we were one time Brahma, so immediately the pride comes in. So
yeah, that itself is a sign that we are fallen.
Yeah, that's itself with how consciously we are degraded. And in this material world, we have our own conceptions like this thing is very degraded, this thing is sophisticated. All these things we have in our thought process because this has been put into our mind systems like that in our upbringing or in the community abroad, outside our bodily systems. So for us, something
Yes.
like being Rajoguna is good and Tamoguna is very bad or something like that. But actually, all these gunas are bad only. Anything in the
Yes.
even Sattva Guna in the material world is bad only because this will trap
Yes.
us. Why it is bad? Because it will trap us into this material world. We have to raise about all these three gunas. So
Yes.
next we'll come to know the consciousness of Daksha also. Then we'll understand how it is so bad. Everybody wants to become controller at different levels. So Brahma at one level is a controller, then as a Prajapati, Daksha is at a different control level. And we as a family male, then we have our own controller, and as a mother, we'll have another controller. We'll try to control our children. So this controlling tendency is there from infinite time within us. Everything has to get cleansed, and all these things are dirty, equally dirty.
Yes.
In spiritual parameters, all these things are dirty, equally dirty. In material parameters, being a mother, being a father, and being a doctor, being a teacher, being a soldier, all these things will be very great and noble things. But in spiritual context, all these things are equally binding and therefore dirty for us.
All of these, yes. So we were on our way down as Brahma, now we have to go back up. So we can understand that even at that position we fell down. So how dangerous this material world is. Right, so we stop here today then. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
तो बात कीजिए.
Jai
Thank
Hare
you so much,
Krishna.
Prabhuji.
Dandavat pranam. Thank you,
Thank you,
Prabhuji.
Ji ki
Prabhuji.
jai. Hare
Sorry about
Krishna.
no, tomorrow,
Nanda pranam ji.
on Monday, we start same time.
Prabhuji is there?
No, Prabhuji is not.